All right, here we go. Happy Wednesday, everyone. It's October 11th. This is Up North News Radio. I'm Pat Kreitlow up here in Chippewa Falls. Dark Chippewa Falls. Still trying to get used to it being so dark early in the morning. It was really a nice sunny summer while it lasted, but that is done gone. So here's a little preview of what's ahead when the radio show gets started in just about 5 minutes here. Our weekly climate check with Melissa Baldoff looks at the way that students are not only learning about the impact of climate change, but they're leading conversations about it, and they're challenging the grown-ups to get to work on reducing the damage and stop contributing to the problem. We'll also catch up with Christina Laurie with the Uplift, some of the lighter stories you can find in our daily newsletter. Then in our second hour, State Representative Lee Snodgrass of Appleton, the Republican Party seems to be working to make voting less convenient and undermine confidence in elections, but Snodgrass and other Democrats in the legislature have introduced a new package of bills to protect democracy, promote voting, and increase the transparency of the big money infecting our politics. And so we'll talk to Representative Snodgrass about that. We'll visit with Todd Alba. We'll get your weatherology forecast and more coming up in just a few minutes here. Again, we get started at 6:06 after news and commercials. So if you're watching this later on a playback, you can run this video ahead 4 minutes for the official start of our radio show. We will talk to you soon. Okay. I think this is about as ready as we're going to get it.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Lesotho studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
Well, hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It's Wednesday, October 11th. Another beautiful day to have you up here up north from wherever you're listening across the Civic Media Radio Network, or on the Civic Media app, or by podcast, or on social media. Nice to have you here in the state of Wisconsin, where we unpack the news every morning for you. A dark, dark morning here, where we're still adjusting to something that, it didn't sneak up on us. The seasons are what the seasons are, but sometimes you just kind of notice it, that, what was remaining of that early morning twilight is now gone at this hour and shows up around 7 a.m. or so instead, and we'll just have to deal with it being dark for a few months here. What do we've got coming up today? Oh, I have several things actually to tell you about. Our weekly climate check conversation with Melissa Baldoff looks at the ways that students are not only learning about the impact of a changing climate, they're leading conversations about it. They're challenging the grown-ups to get to work on reducing the damage and stop contributing to the problem. Christina Laurie will have the uplift, some of the lighter stories you can find in our daily newsletter. In a few minutes, I will take issue with some of the downright shallow coverage from one of the nation's premier newsrooms as they judge the style of Vice President Kamala Harris and also of former Trump White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson. In our second hour, we'll head down the roadmap to protecting democracy. While Republicans are working to make voting less convenient and undermine confidence in elections, Democrats in the legislature have introduced a new package of bills to protect democracy, promote voting, and increase transparency of the big money that's infecting our politics. We'll talk to Representative Lee Snodgrass of Appleton to discuss the ongoing fight against those who promote conspiracy theories and conspire to overturn elections. We'll get the weatherology forecast from meteorologist Jennifer Vuchitsky. We'll talk to Todd Alba, and perhaps you as well, if you'd like to be a part of everything here. 844-967-2789 is the phone number. Again, 844-967-2789. The email address is radio@upnorthnewswi.com. And if you're watching us on one of the several Facebook pages where we run the live video feed of this radio show, just put something right in the comment section, and we may put it up there and address your question or concern. Sam Davison is standing by down in Madison at the Civic Media World Control Center, or whatever we're calling it these days.
The mothership.
Sam? The mothership, yeah. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Yesterday, was it yesterday or the day before you were? No, it was yesterday. You were talking about rebuilding an engine for your vintage Volkswagen Bug. Is that something that was like a weekend thing only, or is that like become an everyday project until you get it done?
Working on it here and there whenever I get time and whenever I have stuff to do, I guess.
You can just kind of come and go to it as you please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here and there. I don't have a lot to do for right now. I brought a bunch of parts to a machine shop yesterday, so it's kind of waiting on that.
Mm-hmm. That's very impressive stuff. I've got a friend who has a DeSoto. I want to say in 1957. And this thing has been sitting in his garage for years and years. And again, just as he's got time, he just knows when he finishes it, it's going to be amazing, but it's not something that he feels any, pressure. It's like, as you can afford finding some vintage part for this thing, you go get it. And I guess I think of it in both cases like a really cool 3D jigsaw puzzle. And I don't even do regular jigsaw puzzles, but there you guys are, just poking all around.
That's a good analogy, yeah.
Yeah. What's been the biggest challenge in doing this? You talked about having to go to a machine shop. Is it that parts are worn and need to be, remanufactured or changed?
Basically, yeah. Other than the engine, up to this point, there hasn't been a part on the car that I haven't been through. So this is like the final challenge, I suppose.
Okay. Well, good. Wish you all the best with it. And I think that once you get it done, now that we know about it, I feel like Civic Media is now going to have an official parade vehicle. You'll now be expected to
be cool.
Put a Civic Media banner on it, and just go down parades. And that would be by choice. I am reminded of one of our favorite old TV stories at TV 13 in Eau Claire, and it predates me, but it was one of the reporters who was going to one of these small towns to cover a parade, made a wrong turn, realized he was now in the parade.
Part of the parade.
and people are waving because it's like, hey, it's TV 13. Hey, it's this reporter. And so he's like, well, I'm here. So he just waves back because you can't do anything till you get to the end of the route. Wow. So it worked out fine for him. So yeah, I could definitely see us doing that with you when this is all said and done. So, just know that you're on standby here for potential parade duty.
I could get down with that idea. I like it.
All right. Hey, the Up North News Daily Newsletter comes out early every morning. Christina Laurie is going to be with us in just a couple of minutes to talk about some of the stories that are getting worked on. I know that, for example, this morning's issue came out, and it includes a summary of Wisconsin lawmakers reacting to the Hamas attack on Israel, but it also talks about some locally grown pumpkins weighing more than 2,000 pounds. And we'll also talk about, an Oshkosh Music Festival that is already attracting some big names for its run next year. So sign up for that newsletter over at upnorthnewswi.com. We'd love to have you as a subscriber there. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back with Christina Laurie, and then we'll unpack some of the headlines. When you're here, you're up north, and we'll be right back. So I was a little nervous there at the start for two reasons. One was the video and audio. Were they good all the way through?
As far as I saw, yeah.
Okay, I could have sworn that I looked like I was on like a really slight delay, and it had me worried that maybe the connection was glitchy, so I'm glad to hear that it wasn't. Mm-hmm. And then on the text app, normally that draft for the 2 hours, that message comes across normally like right at 6 o'clock. And so when it wasn't there at 6:06, I was like, oh no, do we have another network problem?
Yeah, no, I've been noticing that. I don't know 100% why, but it's still working. So
okay, good. So
yeah.
I just wanted to make sure both of those things weren't an issue. So, okay. So, get back to my notes here. Okay. So you've got the Hall & Oates tune, and it jumps right into my tape saying you're going to hear Hall & Oates today. So I think we're all set there. Cool. I'm just skipping sports here. I've got sports notes for 7:15 that we'll talk about because there's just really not much locally happening here. All right, you're going to hear a few Hall & Oates tunes today because Daryl Hall of Hall & Oates House turns 77 years old today. We'll have more birthdays and other news of note from your calendar in today's history lesson and music break a little later on this hour. All right, we normally talk to Christina Laurie on Tuesdays. With the Monday holiday, we're pushing that by a day just to let you know some of the stories that she's doing for our daily newsletter. Sign up for that at upnorthnewswi.com. Christina, how are you?
I'm great, but probably not as good as you fresh off vacation, Pat.
Fresh off vacation, always good to recharge the batteries. I'm a happy camper out here. But people could still basically keep up with what all you've been doing while I was away. And I couldn't help but notice that there was a special Wisconsin birthday not too long ago. Happy birthday to Bucky. I didn't know Bucky actually has a birthday.
He did. He was born 83 years ago from the beginning of October. And another trivia question for you, Pat. Do you know his full name?
No.
It's Buckingham U. Badger. And if you're wondering what the U stands for, that's a great question. The university doesn't even answer it. It's nothing in particular.
Okay.
They just thought it looked good. And so he originally came into the world in 1940. That's when the first drawing of Bucky wearing his signature cardinal and white sweater appeared. And then it was 9 years after that he came to life as a full-sized mascot. And on his birthday, on his actual birthday, we shared some pictures on our social media pages that I would love for you guys to go check out because he is very, very creepy in these early forms. He is scary. Don't show these pictures to your kids. I mean, it's fitting that his birthday is the same month as Halloween.
Oh, seriously, mascot costumes and Halloween costumes, back in that era were just, creepy as all get out. And I'm not a bit surprised that Buckingham was the same way. Hey, we've done a lot about cost of living and ways that President Biden, like through the Inflation Reduction Act and Governor Evers proposing things in the state budget, have been trying to help Wisconsin families. And you've certainly noticed in your coverage of, the cost of living in Wisconsin that, rent is one of those things a lot of people are looking at. They're watching it go up in many places. But, there's also moves by the governor and the president to try to provide some kind of rent relief. What's that about?
Well, Pat, this is something I've not only noticed in my coverage, but in my own personal life. I mean, I'm feeling the stress of being a renter. I live in a 1-bedroom here in Madison, and my rent has quite literally skyrocketed since 2020, like the majority of Wisconsinites. I mean, prices have hiked as high as 43% in Green Bay, 35% in Oshkosh. So if you're feeling the pinch, you're certainly not alone. We put together a whole analysis. We looked at Wisconsin's 6 biggest cities, and we used the latest 1-bedroom apartment rent data we could find to rank them from most to least expensive. Madison, where I am, is the most. The average renter is paying $1,400 a month. $1,450 to be exact. So we're nearing that $1,500 mark here. But the good news, because we always want to focus on that, is that lawmakers are doing a lot to help this. Evers in particular, his new state budget dedicated more funding than ever before to promote affordable housing development in Wisconsin. We have plenty of space to build this. We just need to provide better incentives, he argues, to these builders so that they're able to offer affordable housing. In the state's newest attempt, 5 different bills were signed into law by Evers this past June. So if you're not feeling the help yet, know that help is coming. Also, the Biden administration is focused on this. They put out a resident-centered housing challenge, which is a national call for state, local, and tribal governments to offer more affordable housing, and then the federal government is offering incentives.
Another one of the topics that we cover frequently is about books and book bans. And by way of a preview, we're going to have an excellent guest next Monday. Cabby Hong is a Verona teacher, a recent recipient of Wisconsin Teacher of the Year, somebody very involved in efforts that are out there to ban books about racial equity and teaching history and the dangers of book bans. And Christina, you're certainly no stranger to covering the topic, not only of book bans, but of just ways to, increase reading overall in Wisconsin's libraries and bookstores.
Absolutely. And we reached out to 3 local bookstore owners from Menominee, Spooner, and Wausau, Wisconsin, to find out their favorite banned or challenged books and why you should read them. And the list that they gave to us, I laughed at some of these titles. I can't believe that things like the Harry Potter series in the year 2023 are on the banned book list. There's also the 1619 Project, which was banned because it can make some white people feel uncomfortable about slavery. I would argue they should feel pretty uncomfortable about it. So that's a great book.
Yep.
To Kill a Mockingbird on their list. That, again, one of the best quotes from that book is, "You never really know a man until you climb into his skin and walk around a little bit." And that's what a lot of Republican lawmakers need to do to understand why kids should be reading these books. Also on the list, the picture book, Where the Wild Things Are.
Oh, come on.
Anne Frank, Diary of a Young Girl. I mean,
Seriously.
more applicable now than ever, especially with what happened this past weekend. And Hatchet by Gary Paulson, which was one of my favorite books growing up. It's really just a coming of age adventure story about wilderness survival that is really fitting. It could take place here in Wisconsin. You can kind of see our state in the storyline of that book, but it keeps continuing to be challenged. I shudder to think, what book is next?
Oh gosh. The possibilities are endless because, again, it's people who want to dictate to others what they can read. And I almost think there's a level of indoctrination involved to kind of turn that word back on the people who want to do the banning. So let's end on a more uplifting note. And that would be that Wisconsin has, frankly, once I looked at the list, more zoos than I really appreciated. And, some of Wisconsin's favorite zoos are out there for reading about and going to explore.
And something that's unique about our zoos is that many of them, a majority of them even, are free to anyone. And you might not know that some of them even exist because, like our zoo here in Madison, you're walking through a beautiful neighborhood filled with these historic mansions. Then at the end of a street, there's just this giant zoo. I mean, they're smack dab in the middle of residential neighborhoods. And so they're super convenient. Madison's is free. Many of them are free. And you can just bring your family. It's a great excuse to get outdoors. And these are open all year. So even on the coldest days, many of these zoos offer inside exhibits. They bring their animals indoors. And 2, I just wanted to shout out, besides Madison's Henry Vilas Zoo, which I do recommend, if you head to Green Bay and go to the new zoo and adventure park, you'll always see a growing number of animals. Just this past weekend, actually, Madison shipped one of its giraffes all the way to Green Bay to hang out with their 2 pre-existing giraffes because Madison Zoo is undergoing some renovations. It's worth a Google of how they transport giraffes because that is an adventure in and of itself. But one other great zoo is the Menominee Park Zoo in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. That's another free zoo. It has a great kids play area and it's always free for everyone. So that's a bonus.
And I would, of course, being here in Chippewa Falls, put in a quick plug for the zoo at Irvine Park. It's free. It's one of the smaller zoos you'll go to, but it has made remarkable improvements thanks to a whole ton of donations. What were some of the shall we say, lower level of animal enclosures have been replaced with some of the best animal enclosures that you would find at a small zoo. So again, you just never know where you'll find the next favorite zoo around Wisconsin as you travel.
And Pat, your zoo actually made our list of best spots to catch fall colors because of how beautiful it is as well. And it's amazing how many animals they pack in there. More than 300 different animals in your zoo alone.
And again, Irvine Park is just one of those classic, beautiful parks right in the middle of a city that folks can enjoy. Christina Laurie does all this and more for our newsletter. Sign up for it at our website, upnorthnewswi.com. Thanks, Christina. Have a great day.
You as well.
All right, let's get to now some unpacking of the news. You can reach us with any feedback at 844-967-2789. Just enough time for me to really take issue with a couple of different articles from the New York Times recently. These folks had once set the bar so high for coverage that was smart and insightful, contextual, and now it's right up there with being the paper equivalent of cable news. For example, in the past day or two, there was In Search of Kamala Harris. After nearly 3 years, the vice president is still struggling to make the case for herself and feels she shouldn't have to. Nothing judgmental about that at all. Look, I'm not in a position to critique coverage of women nearly so much as other women might be, so I'm going to let political activist Olivia Giuliana respond to this when she posted yesterday. To be a woman in the political spotlight is to be criticized. The tone of this article echoes a sentiment that is tossed around in a sort of insider baseball, some people don't like the VP way. But when pressed, for the most part, their reasoning is her tone or demeanor, her speech, her clothes, her hair, everything about her that will be criticized, a level that no man in politics and certainly no vice president has ever faced before. Yes, she is Joe Biden's running mate, but she's also the former U.S. Senator from California, known for her stellar performance in judiciary hearings. She is more than a diversity hire. Mike Pence didn't have to worry about his words with intense precision because, frankly, not that many people cared. In other words, the article is a classic example of how the chattering class creates self-fulfilling punditry. And then a few days back, there was a New York Times article about Cassidy Hutchinson. Remember, she testified before the January 6th committee about what she learned inside the Trump White House. There was an entire article just devoted to her style, about how during her testimony, quote, Ms. Hutchinson's style was muted and tailored, a blowout, a blazer, fitted black pants and black top, tiny circle diamond necklace and a white manicure. Her Zara jacket was white too, a color associated with purity, the suffragists, the color of the Capitol building that had been breached and sullied on January 6th. About a recent TV interview, the article goes on to say, her blazer was of brightest blue, a potential nod at least to the other side of the aisle. Beneath that jacket, she wore a drapey, low-neck top of high-gloss white silk. The blouse's high-sheen fabric and cut added glamour, suggesting a new, more relaxed stance and ease in the spotlight. And finally, about another interview, she forewent her usual business-like blazer and leaned into a slouchy glamour in a soft, almost pajama-like dark green silk button-down open at the collar. The cocktailish look complemented well the very different tenor and more revealing nature of this interview. Blech. Seriously, this is the New York Times, and it wouldn't matter if it was any newsroom that devoted that much ink to something like that rather than what she had to say about what was happening in the Trump White House or what Kamala Harris stands for and would represent to the country. Anything beyond that that gets into this dreck is frankly a waste of time, and they need to stop doing it. Melissa Baldoff is coming up next with this week's Climate Check. Back in just a moment. This is Up North News Radio for a Wednesday. right, we're getting back into the swing of things here, and that means a visit with Melissa Baldoff for this week's Climate Check. Melissa, how are you?
Doing well, thanks. How are you?
Hey, good. Look, our theme today, I think, is along the lines of the kids are all right, but they can't do it alone. We've had stories in the past about young people, bringing lawsuits to make sure that their elected officials behave more responsibly when it comes to climate-related issues. We'll talk a bit more about, some other examples of that in just a sec. But when we say that, the kids are all right, but they need the grown-ups to act like grown-ups, we're going to talk about infrastructure and making sure that schools and, other public facilities can deal with a changing climate. There was a story, for example, in the New York Times about that recently.
Yes. And, it's something I think Wisconsinites are, we're no stranger to having a school day disrupted by weather, right? I think a lot of our kids and, I didn't grow up here, but for folks who did, people love a snow day. I know my kids are always eager to have a snow day that's not too cold so they can get outside. And we're used to that. But then we saw this year some schools canceled for excessive heat. That's not something we're used to in Wisconsin. We've had learning disrupted by the really poor air quality. And, it's something that is happening in Wisconsin. It's happening all over the country, more and more dangerous hurricanes. For me, I've mentioned before, grew up in South Florida, no stranger to a hurricane, but I don't think I ever missed school for one. But now seeing my family that's down there, my nephews and nieces, much more impacted. And, again, seeing that how the weather is going to extremes is affecting people in different ways. Like I said, people in Wisconsin aren't used to an excessive heat school cancellation.
No, but we probably will see more of that. And then when it comes to the next level of natural disasters, this Time story notes that the GAO in 2022 found that 840 public school districts, including 39 of the 100 largest school districts in the country, had received grants from certain agencies related to natural disasters. And so there are myriad ways where our children's lives and learning can be disrupted by natural occurrences that are exacerbated by a changing climate. And so it's just a reminder to school boards and administrators and all kinds of other people in decision-making positions to bear in mind things like resiliency. Senator Tammy Baldwin has been a real leader on that in saying, when you're rebuilding a bridge, for example, that's been washed out by a flood, you don't rebuild it the same way because there's a good chance there's going to be a flood that big in the future. So, plan for that.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And especially too, we've talked a lot, over the weeks that I've been doing this with you, about environmental justice and this idea that certain communities are impacted differently. And I think that's really true when we think about the ways that infrastructure is impacted. If you think about folks living in a more rural community where, kids might be on a longer bus ride to school, even if the school's fine, if you've got a flood that's taken out parts of the road, making it dangerous to travel, it's going to be a lot harder for kids to get to and from school safely. If a building is flooded, fewer resources available to, address that and remediate that in a very quick way. So, continue to see that, like that disproportionate impact on rural communities, communities of color, lower income communities, that are often the ones that are worst, first and worst impacted and don't have the resources to, kind of remediate the situation as quickly.
When it comes to public sector, infrastructure of any type, I just think it's important for people to be mindful of this. Look, nobody's asking that every new school project be, luxurious, but we've also got to get past that mindset of, Well, when I went to school, all I needed was a blackboard and a wood stove, and that's all our kids need to learn. We can definitely expand and evolve the way that our public facilities deal with things that are in the here and now, and that includes the stronger storms, the flash floods, the heat, the air quality. You can add those things, and those aren't luxuries. Those are investments that you make so that you're not disrupting our children's learning in the future.
That's right. And, also, again, thinking back to a topic we've discussed before, how important the Inflation Reduction Act is and the bipartisan infrastructure law that, provide resources, incentives for schools, local governments, all kinds of public entities to invest in more resiliency efforts, to invest in green infrastructure, things that are going to make their buildings more secure, more energy efficient, safer, all those great things. There's funding available to make those investments. And, it is tough for so many districts because, we're seeing I feel like just about every April when folks around the state are going out to vote in spring elections, we're seeing dozens and dozens of schools going to referendum just to keep the doors open. So we know that there's an issue with funding, and that's something that the federal government has been able to step up and provide.
So then we get back to the kids, and I thought that story you shared with me from National Public Radio, was rather uplifting in the sense that the kids out there, they've been learning about the climate. They're learning about the here and now. They see it, they learn it, and the story noted that more than 100 student podcasts that were submitted in an NPR podcast challenge touched on climate change. It says here, over and over again, student journalists tried making sense of extreme weather events that are becoming more common or more intense: flash floods, hurricanes, droughts, wildfires. And again, this isn't for those that want to, people love throwing out words like, indoctrination, when the word I think they're really looking for is information. This is what's happening in the here and now, and these are the lessons that need to be taught. And thankfully, it seems like a lot of our students are paying attention to this.
I think that's exactly right. And that's, one of the things that was so kind of, heartwarming for me when I saw that piece is, to know that kids are learning at school, at home, that they're understanding it and that it's important to them. And even, young kids, some of these kids are, 5th grade, 4th grade. And they are really, they understand what the impacts are, and they want to understand how to change things. They want to understand how to educate others. And, it also makes me think back to my days working for Governor Evers, and, the kind of silliness that can come up in politics around science education. And that first year in office, the theme of the holiday Christmas tree was science. And there were just some of the, Looney Tune Republicans were absolutely losing their minds about the idea of kids making science-themed ornaments. But the kids had a great time. It was, we had such an overwhelming response with these really creative, ornaments from kids all over the state. This is interesting. It's something that they can, learn and have fun. And I think anytime kids are connecting what's happening to them, in their daily lives with what they're learning, it makes learning more fun, and it helps them, really grow into engaged citizens as adults.
Here's a great example from the NPR story, but middle schoolers working on a podcast in Bozeman, Montana. And I just drove through Bozeman last week on our way out west, and it is a rapidly growing, beautiful community. The mountains are right there, but they know that their water supply depends on the mountain snow melt. And as that becomes less reliable in a warming world, the students turn to the grown-ups in their community to ask what they can do to conserve water. And that's something that is absolutely can be replicated here in the Great Lakes states, not from a mountain standpoint, but from our own massive freshwater resources that other parts of the country are going to be looking at. And I think we need to make sure we're protecting what we've got and not tapping too deeply into it as the years go by.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think that's such a wonderful thing that our kids in Wisconsin get to learn about is our abundance of fresh water. And they're definitely going to be asking questions about how do we protect that? How do we conserve that? So it's just really, like I said, it's heartwarming to see these conversations. I mean, on the one hand, it's devastating, right? Because we have our kids talking about these awful, big grown-up problems. But then on the other hand, it really is great to see them, want to be part of how do we fix this? How do we get the grown-ups to fix it? And if the grown-ups don't fix it, they're going to know how to fix it.
Yeah, my only hope is that, again, you've had to deal with legislators who were, telling the Department of Natural Resources they couldn't even make reference to, a changing climate. I shudder to think that the people who are already trying to ban books and change some other history lessons might try to interfere in science. And so that's why I'm glad that we have you and others to make the case that these are things our kids do need to be learning about. They're the folks who are going to have to be more resilient and live with the consequences of the world we're leaving them in its current state. Melissa Baldoff, as always, our weekly climate check report. Appreciate it so much. Good to talk to you again. We'll have a great day. We'll see you later on.
Thanks.
It's also worth noting that the auto worker strike is still continuing, and that folks who are working on behalf of a cleaner environment out there are making the case that auto workers should be supported so that the next generation of cleaner automobiles, trucks are created with higher quality union labor. Where workers are building these trucks and cars, the electric vehicles of the future, that is very much a main point of the negotiations that are going on between the United Auto Workers and all three of the major automakers here in the country. Looking at an update from the Detroit News, which does day-by-day updates on the strike. The lead negotiator for the United Auto Workers with Stellantis, I think what we once referred to as Chrysler Plymouth, expressed hope that an agreement could be reached in the next week or so, quote, if we keep on pressing and keep our heads down. As you know, there are some 23,000 UAW members on strike among the 146,000 workers at the big three automakers. But again, as the talks continue, they are looking not only at union representation in building the electric vehicles of the future, but certainly other things like family medical leave and pay, which again, I hasten to add, auto workers, unionized auto workers, gave tremendous concessions in 2008 during the Great Recession. And those auto workers have not yet been made whole from those concessions, even as CEO and other executive pay has more than made up for sacrifices that were made all those years ago. So you don't hear about the strike every day now. It's not an everyday news story the way that it was when it first took place, but it is still very much in play. It is something that continues to be negotiated, and hopefully, like a lot of these other labor situations, gets resolved to the benefit of the workers, that the message is getting out loud and clear to the corporate suites that it is far past time to give workers in some of these industries a fairer shake, a better deal, and get them back to work. For example, building that next generation of hybrids and EVs that are going to do a better job for our climate than what we'd been driving for all these decades. All right, we hopefully will be talking to Melissa Kay in just a bit here from locally grown radio, WFHR, as we take care of today's history lesson and music break. That and then Representative Lee Snodgrass in our next hour here on Up North News Radio. And right on cue, there's Melissa.
Hello, hello.
How you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
I'm all right. So,
Morning, Sam.
did you miss us last week, or did you pop
Morning.
on and say hi to Chad?
No, he didn't invite me.
Okay.
I missed you.
Aw, thanks.
Did you have a nice vacation?
I had a wonderful vacation.
Good.
It was just so nice to get out on the road and drive out west. Didn't get to see any of the 90s that you guys had last week because we were up in the mountains. It was a lot cooler there. But
You didn't miss it.
I wouldn't have minded. I'm not one of those that was hating the 90s. I don't hate on the 90s. This was a perfectly fine decade.
I think so.
And some good temperatures. So what's new in your world? Any big things coming up?
I finally got a new car.
Hey, all right. What'd you
Yeah.
get?
Subaru Forester,
Oh, nice. Okay. New or used?
2017.
Okay.
So used, but not terribly. It's
Mhm.
only got 50,000 miles on it.
Oh, yeah, you do have a good deal there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brown leather interior.
Ooh.
Yeah. Who would have thought? Not me.
No. Oh, that's great. And does the chicken have a name?
Voting is open now, so you can go in, and it's even ranked choice voting.
Ooh, ranked choice voting. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
Rebecca's amazing.
Let's see here. What's the website to go vote?
Wiscountry.com/chicken.
One S or two?
One. As in Wisconsin.
We're on in about 10 seconds.
Okay.
Thanks, Sam.
You have to go back to 1986 for When I Think of You by Janet Jackson. It went to number one this day in 1986. It meant that she and Michael Jackson became the first siblings ever to land number one solo singles on the chart. A little piece of music history I didn't know before. Maybe Melissa Kay did from WFHR. No?
I did not.
Okay. So, yeah, the song, by the way, is also the first number one hit produced by Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. They would not be strangers to the number one spot on the charts. It was their first number one hit. They would do it 15 more times
Wow.
after this one. But it all started with this little ditty by Janet Jackson, which still is a toe tapper, if you ask me. How are you?
Oh, doing well.
Okay.
You know, living life, loving fall,
Yeah.
loving my new car.
A new car. Okay.
Newish. I mean, it's a
Newish.
2017.
Yeah, but as I understand it, 2017, that's still in good shape. How many miles?
50,000.
50,000 only for a 2017.
Yeah.
I mean, I put up almost 50,000 a year while we were out west last week, talking of putting big miles on. My oldest grandson, Mason, he's just turned 17. He just got his first car, passed on from his great grandparents. It's a 1994 Buick Riviera.
Oh, nice.
And it's
boat.
super comfortable because it's a Buick, and it too only has something like 50,000 miles for a 1994.
Oh, my goodness.
It's because they didn't drive it that much. So I mean, talk about a great first car, huh?
No kidding.
Oh man.
I
All
think
right.
my first car was a 94, but that was
Mine?
back in the 90s.
Oh, okay. Mine was a 73 Plymouth Fury.
Oh, wow.
Green, rusted. Oh, it was a boat. Let's see. Saturday Night Live made its debut this day in 1975. I know predates you. How old were you before you'd say you became like a regular Saturday Night Live viewer? Because you didn't have a lot of TV exposure when you were younger, you said. So
I haven't reached that age yet, Pat.
Okay. Well, let's hear a little bit of Billy Preston, because the The first episode of Saturday Night Live actually had 2 musical guests. Billy Preston played Nothing from Nothing here, and Janice Ian did her hit At 17, all as part of that first show, which was not called Saturday Night Live, by the way. It was called NBC Saturday Night for the first couple of weeks before becoming what we know now. Also on this day, 1991, Professor Anita Hill delivered her televised testimony concerning sexual harassment during the Clarence Thomas Supreme Court nomination. What a different world this would be if she had been taken more seriously at the time. On this day in 2001, the Polaroid Corporation filed for bankruptcy protection. I remember being just absolutely stunned by that Polaroid needed to file for bankruptcy in 2001 because they, like Kodak, did not take the digital photo movement seriously. And thought, oh, everybody's going to need film cameras and everybody's going to need instant film cameras. And I mean, I just can't imagine working for a place that has that level of hubris, you know?
We'll never be irrelevant.
No, people will always use our product, said the horse and buggy maker. It doesn't work that way. Now, look, there's still a place for, Polaroid type thing. I still see the occasional.
Still fun. Yeah.
They're still out there, but they're not.
But they're a novelty item now.
Exactly. And how those companies missed that part of the digital revolution is kind of beyond me. All right. We've mentioned you're going to hear a lot of Hall & Oates today. Daryl Hall turning 77 years old today. Daryl Hall was actually born Daryl Hohl, H-O-H-L, in Pottstown, Pennsylvania, but apparently Hall & Oates just wouldn't have the same, ring to it.
Glad he changed that.
It's such a minor thing, but did you know that they've never actually been officially known as Hall & Oates?
Oh, really?
If you look at all their labels and everything, they've always insisted that they be billed as Daryl Hall and John Oates, that they are individuals. But we all just kind of shortened it that way. And, again, just one of those minor things. A couple of birth anniversaries of folks who are no longer with us. Country legend Dottie West was born on this day in 1932. She died as a result of car crash injuries back in 1991. But boy, she had some great songs out in her day, and then she did some duets with Kenny Rogers, if memory serves me right. And then Luke Perry. Now, I did not know Luke Perry well from the Beverly Hills 90210 era, but I was one of those who got sucked into like the first 1 to 2 seasons of Riverdale when he was playing the dad, Archie's dad on there. And it's always weird when you see somebody that you know is basically a child star or a teen star now playing the role of a parent, a middle-aged responsible person.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is always, it's
a little weird.
It's a little weird, but still kind of fun. Mm-hmm. Number one song this day in 1975 was by Neil Sedaka with backup vocals by Elton John. Ooh. While we wait for Neil to come on, we'll tell you that actress Emily Deschanel is 47. You'd know her from the TV series Bones, and her sister Zooey Deschanel, who I know from the movie Elf, but I know she was in New Girl and some other things as well.
Oh, she's great. I love her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, both sisters are really nice actresses. Mm-hmm. Actress Jane Krakowski is 55. I've always been a fan of hers. Let's see, 30 Rock and Ally McBeal is where I know her from.
Yeah.
But she's been in many things as well. Singer Cardi B is 31, and Waukesha-based football player TJ Watt is 29 years old today. It's fun to watch the Watt brothers growing up. JJ, I think, is a regular panelist now on one of the networks. I don't know if it's Fox or one of the others. And again, to see somebody, again, kind of maturing, not the parent role, but now in the analyst role. I think I made this point yesterday, how weird it seems now that Fox NFL Sunday has been on for 30 years. And 30 years ago, it was a big deal that Terry Bradshaw, the legendary quarterback, is, now a pregame analyst. But now that's all anybody knows him as, it
Yeah.
seems, There's very, very few people, who harken back to those days with the Steel Curtain and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Hey, are we still naming a chicken over
We
at Wiscountry?
The voting is up now on wiscountry.com/chicken. And we have 3 names to choose from, and you get to rank them. So it's ranked choice voting.
Ooh, ranked choice voting. Well, that means, that if none of the 3 finalists has a majority, then they take out the third place person or chicken name, and then all of those people, their second choice then gets ranked, and then we're going to see Wisco Chick, Winston Von Cluck, and Agatha.
Yes.
So go to Wiscountry, wiscountry.com/chicken and name that chicken.
Yeah, get in on our voting. It's fun.
All right. Melissa Kay from Locally Grown Radio, thanks so much.
Yep. Thank you, Pat.
All right. Back with more in our next hour. You're up north. Wonderful.
Excellent.
Okay. Hey, let's see. So the winning name will be announced Halloween morning. That'll be on a Tuesday. You'll be on the Wednesday, so you'll be able to break the news for us.
Yay.
Right. Hey, you have a great day. Good to see
Yep,
you.
you too.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Are you like a huge Hall & Oates fan or something? I didn't realize how much you had today.
Yes, I am. And there's actually a story behind that I was going to tell later with Todd. But my wife waited until we'd been married 20 plus years to tell me she hates Hall & Oates. And that she'd just been kind of putting up with me all these years of, playing it or cranking it up. And so for the past, decade plus, I've been, if it ever comes up on the radio, I turn the channel because I know she hates Hall & Oates. But so today's like my one day to indulge.
Today's the day she doesn't listen to your show.
Oh, I know she was listening on the way up. I didn't mention anything to her, but I am sure she's going to tell me later, like, oh, you didn't tell me it was going to be an all Hall & Oates show. I'm like, yeah, well, did you turn the station? I don't know. We'll see. That, and I don't have much of anything else to go on from today's music stuff. I'm not, shall we say, I'm not a Cardi B aficionado. I wouldn't know what to play and whether it would keep the kids listening, shall we say.
Why, is it her birthday or something?
Yeah, Cardi B was mentioned down there.
Oh, I
Yep.
must have not noticed.
Cardi B, Dottie West. But Dottie West tunes are fairly slow. And yeah, there wasn't much else for musical artists today. It was definitely there wasn't nearly as much information. Let's see. And how does tomorrow look? I'm so happy any weekend where I can get these all done ahead of time. Yeah, tomorrow it was all I could do to squeeze out 4 songs as well. A lot of history notes, but not a lot of music notes. Now Friday, there's actually going to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 songs going that day. So, so much more work than I thought it would be, but I'm glad people like it.
That's what I do all during Stu's show, is trying to find stuff that you didn't play.
Oh, really?
That has like some significance for the day. Yeah. Or just stuff that he likes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool. Roger, your point is extremely well taken, but I'm trying to quickly listen back to Dottie West's Country Sunshine, and not sure if I can get something picked out there to start the 7:15 in time. While I'm prattling on, Sam, if Dottie West Country Sunshine is something you want to queue up for 7:15, we can certainly do that. What's your other note here? Buck Trent. Oh, okay, him.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Lesotho studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
Back now at 7:06, and welcome back to Up North News Radio. For this Wednesday, October 11th, this is Sausage Pizza Day, Pet Obesity Day, National Emergency Nurses Day, National Curves Day, National Bring Your Teddy Bear to School Day. This is General Pulaski Day. It commemorates Polish General Kazimierz Pulaski, a hero of the American Revolution, who died on this day in 1779 from battle wounds suffered in Savannah, Georgia. And this is also National Coming Out Day, with a note that homophobia thrives in silence. And so while nobody should be pressured to come out, this is a day to celebrate those who do embrace their sexual identity and are looking simply for the respect and inclusion that we all deserve. Coming up this hour, Republicans continue working to make voting less convenient and undermine confidence in elections, but Democrats in the legislature are busy introducing new bills to protect democracy, promote voting, and increase transparency of the big money that's infecting our politics. Representative Lee Snodgrass will be here to discuss the ongoing fight against those who are promoting conspiracy theories and conspiring to overturn elections. And so we'll visit with her. We'll visit with Todd Alba a little later on this hour as well to see what he is talking about on his weekday afternoon show here, all across the Civic Media Radio Network. A reminder, if you missed our last hour or any of our past hours and programs, you can catch them in one of several ways. You can head over to the Civic Media website, civicmedia.us, click on shows, and at every show, you can see every hour, a title and show description, and a link to either listen through the website or listen through your favorite podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. So head over to civicmedia.us and catch the show that way. You can join us here at 844-967-2789. Again, 844-967-2789, and our email address is radio@upnorthnewswi.com. Didn't really have much to mention in sports. What with the Packers had lost on Monday, the Brewers are out of things, but I should at least make a nod to the playoffs that are ongoing in Major League Baseball, especially since the Minnesota Twins are still involved, although they are now hanging by a thread. The Astros beat the Twins at Target Field last night 9-1, and that gives the Astros a 2-1 lead over Minnesota in their best-of-5 American League Division Series. And then in the other ALDS matchup, the Cinderella story is over for the Baltimore Orioles. They were swept by the Texas Rangers after Texas defeated them 7-1 yesterday. So get this, the Baltimore Orioles had just a dream season. They played 53 different series against teams this season, 2 games, 3 games, 4 games. They were never swept in any of those series throughout the regular season. The first time they were ever swept in a series was this 3-game sweep right here against the Texas Rangers. Over in the National League, Arizona has not yet played a home game in the postseason. They eliminated the Brewers with 2 games at American Family Field, and they have stunned the LA Dodgers. The 100 wins for the LA Dodgers in the regular season. Arizona beat them in both games at Dodger Stadium, and now Arizona can advance to the National League Championship Series at home if they were to defeat the Dodgers in the Desert Southwest. The other National League Series is Atlanta playing at Philadelphia, and that best-of-5 series is tied at 1 game apiece. And I should note that the National Hockey League got its season started last night as well. An interesting note here about Mary Lou Retton, the Olympic gymnast, America's sweetheart from the 1984 Olympic Games. Apparently, she is fighting for her life in a Texas hospital in intensive care with a rare form of pneumonia. Retton is 55 years old. She had become the first American woman to win the Olympic all-around title. Her mom says that she has started a fundraising campaign on her daughter's behalf for medical expenses because Mary Lou Retton does not currently have medical insurance. And again, I don't know the whole story behind that, how much of it is a factor of finances, a factor of personal choice, or whatever the case may be. It just simply underscores the notion again how very, very odd it is in the United States of America, nearly alone among organized democracies, where people go bankrupt because of medical bills. Because we, unlike every other country out there, have not yet come to the conclusion that if you provide a baseline of medical security to folks, they will be healthier, the economy will be better. But this is a battle we're still fighting generations later that it first came to be. And Not that Mary Lou Retton's case is going to move a lot of the hard hearts on Capitol Hill, but it does give us one more example of what we could be doing differently to help people avoid bankruptcy and help people avoid, frankly, life-threatening illnesses like we're seeing from Mary Lou Retton, who's in a Texas hospital right now. Take a break here. We'll look at temperatures around the state, and we'll get our weatherology forecast for midweek as well. Wherever you're listening across Wisconsin on this Wednesday morning, when you're here, you're up north. We'll be right back.
You want me to play Country Sunshine?
You got it there?
Yeah.
Sure, let's do that.
All right.
I was raised on country sunshine, green grass beneath my feet, running through fields of
Connie West
daisies,
was born this day 91 years ago, 1932. Passed away after a car crash in 1991. Country Sunshine being one of her big hits. And I thank our listener Roger for tipping us off to something we could play besides Hall & Oates for Daryl Hall's birthday today. All right, looking at temperatures around the state as we come into the 7 o'clock hour here, everything has dropped a degree or two from the last hour. Lake Wissota up here, we're down to 37 degrees, Madison at 35, Waukesha 41. La Crosse is at 36 degrees, Wausau 44, Wisconsin Rapids 44. In Green Bay, it's 46 degrees, and Hayward, 42 degrees right now. And that gives us time to check the forecast for the rest of today, midweek, and heading toward the weekend. And conditions that may not necessarily be quite as nice as what we're seeing here this morning. We're going to get the full details now from meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Jennifer, good morning.
Good morning.
So what do we have here? I understand that while things here on Lake Wissota, fairly clear skies, it feels really nice, but that we shouldn't put away the rain gauge just yet necessarily?
Yeah, not quite yet. Yeah, like you mentioned, it looks like sunny skies for the southern half of the state today around Baldwin as well. Otherwise, partly sunny for everyone else. A warm front begins to push through today, so a little warmer compared to yesterday, mid-50s to right around about 60 degrees for most, getting into the mid-60s around Richland Center. Then a chance for some rain showers coming in for the southern half of Wisconsin tonight. Chance for showers for the second half of the work week here for all. Looks like mid-50s Thursday for everyone, then mid to upper 50s on Friday from Oshkosh and everyone south. Then upper 40s around 50 around around central and west central Wisconsin on Friday. For the weekend, a chance for showers and storms that started out for all on Saturday, highs in the mid to low 50s. Sunday, it looks like a chance for some showers from Milwaukee over to Madison, then cloudy and dry for everyone else. So the highs for all once again around that mid to low 50 mark, which is going to be a bit below average for this time of the year.
All right, Jennifer. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too.
All right. Looking now as we continue unpacking the news on this Wednesday morning. Well, actually, I want to give you one musical note here first, and that is about another passing of country music instrumentalist, banjo player Buck Trent. He was a two-time CMA Group of the Year winner, a prominent banjo-playing member of the cast of Hee Haw. He died on Monday in Branson, Missouri at the age of 85. As I'm looking at news from around the country here and other political notes, I realize I'm going to have to reach out to one of our sister publications through Courier Newsroom. Up North News is a part of Courier Newsroom, and one of their other state-based outlets is the Cardinal and Pine in North Carolina, and talk to them about what has happened since Republicans in the legislature there gained a supermajority in the legislature, able to override the vetoes of the Democratic governor, Roy Cooper. Well, that just happened in North Carolina in allowing Republicans to do what they did in Wisconsin in terms of tearing down the state elections board and remaking it in a way that is liable to lead to more gridlock. Republicans were able to override Governor Cooper's veto of the bill. It's a long-sought goal of the GOP for bipartisan boards. And look, bipartisan boards are not the issue. The issue is that the boards are set up that they could deadlock on things like establishing early voting locations or certifying results in the state. It's similar to what happened in Wisconsin when the nationally regarded and well-honored Government Accountability Board was torn apart by Republicans in the Wisconsin legislature because that panel of retired judges was getting awfully close to discovering potentially illegal campaign coordination activity by then Governor Scott Walker. The system that we have now, the Wisconsin Elections Commission, was again set up for gridlock with 3 Democratic members, 3 Republican members. It's led to some very acrimonious meetings and more than a fair share of 3-3 votes that have been good or bad, depending on your interpretation of any given issue. And this is something that North Carolina has now been able to do with their own state elections board in terms of remaking it more to their liking and making it tougher once again to protect voting rights and to promote voting. And it's the kind of stuff we will discuss with State Representative Lee Snodgrass coming up in just a second or two here. There's also a note here about how the Biden White House is starting a new effort to crack down on tens of billions of dollars in junk fees. You've heard about this before. It's coming in waves. There's some new rules that are going to be coming down through the Federal Trade Commission and through the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau toward banning junk fees in the business and the banking sector. It's coming back to something that a theme that we have talked about many times on this program, and it is the theme of increasing competition. For all those who like to say that liberals and progressives are, hostile toward capitalism and they're more like, socialists in waiting, the fact of the matter is, at the moment, it's Democrats and progressives who are more the party of protecting capitalism for all, not just for a select wealthy few. The whole foundation of capitalism is competition, and competition does not happen by itself. Left in a vacuum, businesses will try to outdo or acquire one another to the point where a business has a monopoly or near monopoly power and can then price gouge and do whatever it wants to consumers, to employees, to the environment. It is something that, Adam Smith noted himself a couple of hundred years back in writing about capitalism is that it requires a government of the people to be looking out for the people and making sure that competition is enhanced, that it is robust in a capitalistic system. That's something the Biden administration has been focusing on, promoting competition in the industry. For example, the Consumer Finance Protection Board released a rule proposal on excessive credit card fees already. The Federal Trade Commission has been targeting unfair practices in ticketing and other fees, and every one of us can point to something. In my case, it would be airline tickets, but for you, it might be concert tickets or something else where the fees are just ridiculous. Again, not to say that there is not a time and place for a reasonable service fee, but that's the kind of thing normally that is baked into the price of something. So when I'm shopping for airline tickets, I can't trust you if one airline says that this ticket's going to cost me $340 and another airline says it's going to cost $350. There's no guarantee when you first look at that the airline charging $10 less doesn't actually hit you with $30 to $50 in fees once you click through and look at the fees for baggage or the fees for picking your seat in the airplane and a whole host of just junk. And I think it's rightly mentioned that way. There's new rules proposed by the Federal Trade Commission that would prohibit businesses from burying fees within a transaction and force them to present the amount and the purposes of those surcharges up front, according to this article from CNBC. And that could potentially save consumers $10 billion over the next decade. Under the proposed rule, the commission would be able to secure refunds for consumers if the mandate is violated. The rule would not just return money to people's pockets, but also restore a degree of justice to American families and restore fairness in our markets, according to Federal Trade Commission Chair Lena Khan. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has slapped fines on Wells Fargo and Bank of America and Regions Bank in the past, citing extraneous overdraft fees or overcharges. These are all small things in the sense of, we're talking about service fees, the things that are a tiny fraction of the overall revenue of a company, of a bank, of an airline or whatnot. So on the one hand, they may seem like small potatoes, but if you let something like this get out of hand, it just makes it that much easier for either a company to acquire monopoly power through essentially price fixing, or it allows for collusion of multiple companies within an industry that they can all work together and, again, gouge consumers to one degree or another. And it's only if our own elected officials are willing to step in from time to time and punish those who are basically restricting free competition. It's only having those elected officials in place that is going to help the consumer and help the employee and help the environment not get abused. So when you hear, primarily, of course, from the Republican side, when you hear that, government should be run like a business and that we should, trust the quote unquote job creators to do the right thing, keep in mind that is not always going to be the case. The fairy tale of the benevolent corporation that is always going to look out for its hometown and its workers. Is it possible to over-regulate an industry? Oh, of course it is. And that's why we have elections. But we can't unelect a company once it has monopoly power over us. When you're at the point now where only 4 companies control most of the meat packing in this country, and all of the other examples that we've brought up over time. So yeah, start with junk fees. Go after the credit cards. Go after the airlines. Send that message that the American people, the consumer, should come first, and that there is absolutely all manner of room for capitalism there's all manner of room for profit, but that there is no room, there is no tolerance for price gouging, for collusion that hurts employees, and practices like that. That's where we need responsible people in office. One more quick note before Representative Lee Snodgrass joins us. The Wisconsin Healthcare Association is seeing the effects of understaffing and has started training people as certified nurses aides for free through something called the WIS Caregiver Careers Program. That's according to an article in today's Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. The budget for the Wisconsin Fast Forward Workforce Development Program, however, has been cut by some 16% by the legislatures, suggesting that the Department of Workforce Development has failed to spend all the money it could on the program. The funding is now capped at $10 million, or $2 million less than the previous cycle, something that we will, again, look to learn more about, because we do have a very real problem with workforce development in the state, and we need all hands on deck, not just the legislators, but the administrators of programs, making sure that they're using our funds efficiently to get people trained for these industries that are so short on workers. But now we're going to turn our attention to how our elected officials should be promoting voting and protecting democracy. And we'll talk about some new bills with one of the sponsors, Representative Lee Snodgrass, coming up next. You're Up North.
I was raised on country sunshine.
Hey there, Lee.
Good morning. I just got into the office. I thought I should probably do this here than my sister's kitchen table.
Okay, not to worry. How are you?
Frazzled. How are you?
Oh, yeah. Another day in the life down there. I believe it. Thanks.
I think
Thanks
I lost you.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this. Appreciate it so much.
Yeah. I get this camera.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I'm just going to have you walk me through the bills, and then we'll just kind of take care of some other general business here. In what should be a productive fall special session, but most decidedly is not.
Yeah, Thursday's not going to be fun.
Yep. There we go. All right, we're going to get going in 60 seconds here. And you're using are you using a laptop that's on a desk?
Yeah. Do you want me to switch just to the laptop?
No, you're fine. I was just going to say, because we're going through the computer microphone, just be careful with moving things on the desk or tapping your fingers or whatever, because then that all comes through as well.
Gotcha.
All right. 15 seconds here. All right, well, as we've noted a few times here, Republicans have seemed to have made a cottage industry out of undermining confidence in elections, making voting less convenient, making it more intimidating, making it hard to follow the dollars. Somebody needs to be trying to reverse this trend, and that somebody happens to be Democrats in the Wisconsin Legislature, and State Representative Lee Snodgrass of Appleton is one of them, introducing a new package of bills meant to protect democracy. Representative Snodgrass joins us now. Good morning, Lee.
Good morning, Pat. Nice to be here.
Yeah, nice to see you there at the Capitol for another week of what should be productivity, but it isn't, and we're going to get into the details on that in just a bit. But I want to hear more about the legislation that's being proposed. Never mind what Republicans will or won't do with it. Just the fact that it has to be written and introduced at all is kind of saying something about the state of, one political party in our democracy. Can you tell us kind of the basis of putting this package together, and then we'll also get into the specifics of what all is in it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Really, these bills are in direct contrast to what we've seen from Republicans in recent years. Republicans are doing everything they can, it seems, to undermine confidence in elections. We wanted to make sure that we were introducing a good government package that reminds people that democracy is safe and sound in Wisconsin, and it really can be strengthened by some of the things that we're putting forward. So our bills do everything from increased voter access and education about the voting process and democracy. Power to the People is a great package of bills that Freshman Joyers and Ratcliffe have introduced as part of the package, which returns sort of the power of the referendum to the people. And then the campaign integrity is led by Chris Larson, and that has some campaign finance reform in that package.
And look, again, when it comes to campaign finance reform, we're in the Citizens United era where it's almost anything goes. And while that's not going to be fixed, by waving a magic wand, it is important to note that it actually can be fixed. We can actually go back to a system that follows the money and does not in any way impede the voters' ability to learn about the candidates, right?
Yeah, this package is so comprehensive. I actually, if you don't mind, I'm just going to read it here in front of me.
Sure.
There's a Contributions Limit Act as one of his. There is a Closing the PAC Loophole Act. There's the Coordination Control Act, which places some financial limits on coordinated expenses. There's the No Corporate Campaigns Bribes Act. There's the Contribution Sunshine Act, which requires any committee that receives campaign finance of more than 100 cumulatively from an individual to report that. So essentially all of the bills in his package that we rolled out make sure that people know, who their politicians their candidates are getting money from. It kind of helps to know who's supporting them with money. And as you know, that has been hidden largely.
Oh, the hiding is stunning in the way that it can be done by, moving money around from group to group, or even, through county parties, and then coming back to other campaigns along the way. And, there's some that say, well, look, let's allow unlimited funds. Let's just do a better job of tracking it so it can be transparent. But I think if we've learned anything over the past 10 plus years of Citizens United, is that that's not going. If you allow unlimited money through all these shadow organizations and other ways, it's just darn near impossible to track it. It would be better to have the kind of reasonable limits that let people participate in democracy, but not let, the fat cats essentially get away with moving unlimited funds wherever they want to go.
Yeah, and this is really truly a bill that, to be honest, his package is something that both sides have done. So it's not really a bill that's sort of attacking one party or the other. It's sort of saying, for the people of Wisconsin, they deserve to know where the money that is supporting the campaigns of the people who are in office comes from.
it's a little bit off topic, but I was talking about it in the last segment here, that when it comes to protecting confidence in elections, that North Carolina Republicans just overrode their Democratic governor's veto and are remaking their state elections board in a way that is much like Wisconsin, the way that Republicans set up the current elections commission for deadlock with 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans. They call it bipartisan, but by setting it up that way, you increase gridlock and you make it tougher to, protect democracy and promote voting. As you look at the current system that is set up here, do you feel like one of the things that should be looked at some point is the makeup of our own elections commission, whether it's going back to the government accountability board model with retired judges or something else like that? Do you feel like that's going to be a necessary component to increase the security of Wisconsin election integrity?
I'm not one of those people who's calling for the dismantling of WEC. I think largely WEC has done good work in providing guidance to our clerks throughout the state. Obviously, right now, some of the things that are happening with threats of impeachment and firing Megan Wolf and all of that, it has certainly complicated things. But I think the important thing is to remind people is that this is a mess of the Republicans' own making. They were the ones who dismantled the Government Accountability Board. They're the ones who established WEC, and now they're the ones who are complaining about what they put into place. So I think the important thing for people to realize is that Wisconsin's elections are not tainted. We have great, high integrity people working our elections in Wisconsin who take their job very seriously, who are on both sides of the aisle. The great thing is we don't know how those people vote. They just take that job of democracy really seriously. And some of the bills in our package are really going to help them do their job a little bit better and easier.
When you talk about the talk by Republicans of either impeaching Megan Wolf, the administrator of WEC, the Wisconsin Elections Commission, or even Supreme Court Justice Janet Protasiewicz, again, this is a dangerous level of talk for a democracy. And our top story right now over at UpNorthNewsWI.com comes off of the words of Assembly Speaker Robin Vos the other day, who basically acknowledged, this talk of impeaching Janet Protasiewicz, maybe we're not going to go that far, but he hinted that they may not have to because the U.S. Supreme Court could ride to his rescue. They already did last year in essentially throwing out a map because the conservative justices on the U.S. Supreme Court said that there were too many black majority assembly districts, 7 instead of 6. Just something that was stunning that Elena Kagan and Sonia Sotomayor blasted the conservatives for doing. But it was clear the U.S. Supreme Court conservatives were willing to ride to the Republicans' rescue. And Robin Vos was essentially saying, we may not have to impeach Janet Protasiewicz. She and the progressive justices can rule however they want. I'll bet we can get the U.S. Supreme Court to overrule the Wisconsin Supreme Court, something that used to be unheard of. But I think it's a very real concern. I just wonder if you share that concern.
First of all, Robin Vos likes to speculate, and in spite of what he might think, he's not always right. I still believe that there is some integrity when it comes to our highest court, in spite of some of the previous rulings. And I cannot imagine any justice of any merit finding reason to impeach Janet Protasiewicz, a justice who is yet to rule on a case. So I still have faith in the process, but I've been wrong before. But I've learned that speculation when it comes to some of these things is often pointless because in any given day, in any given moment, the narrative changes and we have new information. I was thrilled to see former Justice Prosser's comments yesterday about don't do it. And that gave me a little bit of hope that, perhaps the Amy Coney Barretts of the world won't come to his rescue on a white horse.
Yeah, let's hope so. And hopefully it was just Assembly Speaker Vos, wishing out loud and not making any kind of a prediction. To get back to the package of legislation that you're working on, it's not just about some of the administrative functions, but also making sure that there are things like voter education and even just promoting voting. And look, some of us have always been promoting voting, but I think you need that more than ever What kinds of things are you and your other co-authors doing to help people understand that despite all of the negative talk out there, that they really should be voting? Their vote has value. They shouldn't throw up their hands. They should still be participants in democracy.
Well, one of my favorite parts of the package is the part that I've, part of drafting, which is really voter access and education for young people. We have a number of bills in the package that will make it easier for high school students to register to vote. And I'm sure you've raised some kids. I had some kids who were teenagers not too long ago. You got to grab them where they are. They're busy. They've got extracurriculars. They're off with their friends. And one of the bills is going to allow them to have the materials at their school to register to vote. And even to pre-register 16 and 17-year-olds so that when they do turn 18, all that paperwork is done and they're ready to go. Another bill that actually is going to have some bipartisan support, I think, is a bill that came to us from Oshkosh West high school students a number of years ago, my first term, and that would require 1 hour of voter education in K through 12. And it came from young women who were really disappointed that their peers did not understand voting, the importance of voting. And they said, you know what, let's develop some curriculum. Let's work with the schools, and let's figure out a way that we can appropriately let people know, whether they're kindergartners or seniors in high school, what voting's all about and why it's important.
One of the things I really like about that is that we have been talking for cycles now about reaching the so-called swing voter. And that's not to say that there aren't swing voters out there, but A, there might be fewer than you count on, and B, by swinging it means they could really go any given way depending on, campaign ads and things like that. So instead of talking about the swing voter who's 40 and undecided about what they are, we're seeing much more of a focus now on reaching those new voters. And I think that's a positive, not only for democracy reasons, but for the reasons that these are people who have seen firsthand everything from the lack of gun safety measures in schools to the way their education was altered by the pandemic, and doing nothing, seeing no action on health care. I think we have a generation Z, mostly of younger voters, who are more than ready, unlike my Gen X folks who are very apathetic. I think these folks are more than ready to say, where do I sign up? It's time for us to make a difference at the ballot box.
Yeah, and now we may have opportunities where we can make that easier for them to sign up. I agree with you, and I always go back to one time Michelle Obama had said to a young person, she said, "You wouldn't let me pick your music or your clothes, so why are you letting people like me pick who represents you in government?" And I've said that to a number of young people, and it kind of stops them in their tracks because they really have power as a voting bloc. And you're absolutely right. The big issues that I am working on and passing, they're not going to really impact me for that much longer, to be honest. It's going to impact the next generation, the millennials, the Gen Zs, and Gen Alpha, I think, are already into. So I think it's incredibly important for them to realize the power that they have as a voting bloc and as an individual. And we certainly want to encourage it. That's what this country is all about. It's making sure as many people who are eligible to vote do get out there and vote.
I hate to end on a down note, but again, this is a fall legislative session that could have seen action on child care, on a real middle-class tax cut and such. But these bills that are being rushed through, these anti-trans youth bills, they've gone from introduction to committee hearing to committee vote, and now to the floor of the assembly in some of the shortest time frames I've ever seen. And I mean, that's coming up this week, isn't it?
It's coming up on Thursday. It's honestly abhorrent, disgusting, and shameful. We know that these are wildly unpopular. We had over 10,000 pages of testimony and people just packed the halls, yet they're moving forward. And the only reason they're doing this is that dog whistle issue that we've seen across the country that ignites their base. But I think it's harmful. I think it's harmful to introduce it. It's certainly super harmful to bring it to the floor. It didn't come to the floor last time. These are terrible bills. Democrats will be fighting against them. We'll be speaking out against them. And to our transgender and non-binary individuals, please know we have your back. You belong and you matter.
And that's where I think, again, not making a prediction here, but it just seems like, again, when you mentioned the backlash, the overwhelming turnout at the public hearings for these bills, that much gives me, some hope that again, folks are not just throwing up their hands and saying, well, what are you going to do? That they are actively raising their voices. And part of it is most definitely because of folks like you that are helping, rouse the troops, and it's greatly appreciated. Representative Lee Snodgrass, thank you so much for your time. It's great to visit with you on what I know is a busy week.
Thank you so much, Pat. Nice to see you all.
All right. Have a great day. When we come back, we'll talk to Todd Alba of the conveniently named Todd Alba Show and find out what he is discussing weekday afternoons from 1 to 3 all across the Civic Media Radio Network. That's coming up as we wrap up our conversation for this Wednesday on Up North News Radio. We'll be right back. Oh, I suppose I have to add you to the stage here. There we go. Welcome to the studio. Can't hear you. You appear to be muted, or it might be that Sam hasn't brought you through the board yet. Probably can't because we're on a commercial break.
There we go. Look at
Hey,
Sam and Herbie.
there you go. Now I hear.
He's talking to Bill and Conwall.
Yes, he is, and hopefully nobody listening to commercials, is hearing you and me.
That happened to us yesterday.
Did it?
Joanne from Richland Center goes, you guys are over the commercials. Like, okay. Thanks for telling me.
Yep.
Welcome back, Patrick.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry I haven't responded to your email.
I'm taking it as a no news is good news approach.
Or just I'm completely overwhelmed.
Yeah. There's a lot of that. Yes, sir, Sam.
Bill on the phone, he just wants to talk more about getting kids like civically involved and all that. So if you want to take the call.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Thank you. It was a great break. Thank you for doing the double duty there.
Yes, you're very welcome.
It's one of those things I go pretty much every year. It's going to do you a lot of good, and yet sometimes you're still amazed in hindsight, like, oh yeah, I really did need that. I really needed that time off.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, here we go in about 15 seconds here. All right, now I can make a confession as Todd Alba, man, myth, legend, joins us from the Civic Media Studios, where he is slow jamming his way into our studios.
Nice song.
I have to confess now, I had to wait because I know my wife listens to the first hour as she's commuting to work. I think I've told this story before, but in case I haven't, my wife kept a secret from me for like the first 20 years of our marriage.
Do tell.
And I can't remember when exactly it came out, but I think anybody, whether you have a spouse, a partner, whatever the case, when you learn something new about them after many, many years, and it really kind of hits you like, I never suspected this about you. And she confessed, and she knows I listen mostly to older music. I'm an old man. That's what I do now. Listen to a lot of 70s and 80s music. And she knows one of my favorite groups, and she says, I got to tell you, I hate Hall & Oates. And I mean, it was just a punch in the chest. And I thought, oh no. And so by and large, when we're on road trips or in the car at all, if Hall & Oates comes on, because now I'm not the young jerk that I was where I'd be passive aggressive and turn it up. Now I turn the station. We don't even talk about it. I just turn the station knowing, look, if I want to listen to Hall & Oates or something else, I'll do it on my own time. But today, on the occasion of Daryl Hall's 77th birthday, we went with pretty much all Hall & Oates for the bumpers, and I'm waiting for Sherry to either when she calls at lunch or after work going, yeah, you didn't tell me you were pretty much wall-to-wall Hall & Oates today. I'm like, yeah, I didn't. This is my show.
So do we understand, Pat, on your vacation, there was not a lot of Hall & Oates on the car radio.
There was
the stereo.
There was absolutely no Hall & Oates on there whatsoever, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. One of her favorite groups from that era is Air Supply. I turn that dial every time they come on. I don't hate them the way she hates Hall & Oates, but I don't particularly like them. It was just weird that after all those years together, we're kind of a bit more honest about what from each person. She's a big fan of Pink right now.
Oh, really?
I again am not. To me, it's like, they're all kind of sounding the same. You know, you hear one Pink song, you've heard them all, which I am sure everybody is saying about Hall & Oates right now. But you like what you like, you know?
You like what you like.
You have your favorite. We let every one of our guests, almost every one of our guests, have a say about their walk-on music.
Oh, really?
You're pretty much the only one I have never asked about your favorite artist, that we just abuse you and play whatever we want when we come on.
Pat Kreitlow maintains the don't ask, don't tell policy when it comes to music for me.
If he doesn't tell me, if I don't ask him his favorite music, I won't have to tell him how much I don't like it. So here it is, Todd. Here it is.
Thank you.
In gratitude for filling in for me for part of my vacation last week, I am finally going to say, Todd, what do you like? What would you choose for your own walk-up music?
Boy, I don't know. It depends. I'm a big Kenny Chesney fan. So, that's
nope,
anything.
Absolutely not. Hate him. No, we're never going to do it.
You
no.
hate
No,
really
I'm
hate Kenny
teasing.
Chesney?
I'm teasing.
Oh my God.
My only thing on Kenny Chesney is, and I'm being a little harsh because I'm such a Jimmy Buffett fan, that he kind of struck me as, I see what Jimmy Buffett's doing, and I'm, 30 years younger than him or whatever it is. I'm just going to start doing what he's doing. And eventually Jimmy's going to retire or move on. And then I'm going to own the beach music, getaway genre. And the fact of the matter is he's done it. He's done it perfectly, and good for him. And maybe it was all sincere, but it just, I ascribed a conspiracy to it that I probably shouldn't have.
I can see that. I mean, they were, from my understanding, very good friends. They turned out to be very good friends, and they toured together a little bit. And I think they were legit friends. But yeah, I mean, as you just described it, as it turned out, unfortunately, Jimmy Buffett passed away this year. And so I guess the genre is all his. But I think he actually has a house down in the islands. He actually lives it. He doesn't
look, he lives. He walks the walk. He talks the talk. Yeah, absolutely. You are a walking billboard over here. You've got Civic Media sign on the wall behind you, a Civic Media on the monitor, and the Civic Media T-shirt. They all match.
Yep. And also, you can't see the Civic Media underwear.
So no, we don't. No, we do not.
The boxer briefs.
Here's a good time to
all
switch.
Your junk news together.
Here's a good time to switch gears. Bill in Oconomowoc is on the line and wants to talk a bit more about young people taking part in democracy, something Todd and I like to talk about. So, Bill, what's on your mind?
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, and as long as you don't ask Todd about his underwear, we'll be good. So tell me about your original question.
I'm not going to go down that road today.
Don't go down that road at all. No, sir.
Anyhow, I think that what we ought to be pushing for a bill in Wisconsin that starting in elementary, they teach local governments, like in elementary school, teach local government, go to a city hall or, some meetings, get involved, learn it for the upper grades of the elementary. In high school, go to the state government, learn that, and go to some hearings and stuff at the Capitol. I would believe we'd be helping our culture immensely by getting kids involved at a young age, because like Michelle Obama said, and that was a perfect quote, nobody picks out your music, nobody picks out your clothes, nobody should pick out your politics. If kids could learn at a young level how we operate, a friend of mine said if kids got involved at a young age in politics, when they were ready to vote, they'd take a chainsaw to it. I know they would. I just know how kids function. So anyhow, thanks for letting me speak that.
Absolutely, Bill. Appreciate it so much. Have a great day. And
Thanks,
actually,
Bill.
It's somewhat reminiscent or harkens back to something we talked about in our first hour, that kids are learning more and more about the changing climate and are leading those conversations now with their parents and with other grown-ups saying, what are you going to do about this? I know they already take civics classes. You and I both have seen the days when those fourth graders come into the state capitol. And those are some of the best days because you see how amazed they are at the building and how in awe they are of the people who work there. So there already is a civics component, but I agree with Bill that we can always do more in terms of, educating about democracy, because again, we never thought we'd live in an era of having to defend and protect democracy, but here we are. So let's go ahead and educate about it too.
I totally agree. I know that AP classes are important. I know that teachers are already overwhelmed. School districts are overwhelmed with what all the requirements they have. But I agree, just basic civics and also just basic finance. I mean, nobody really balances a checkbook anymore, but just the basic finances. I think those are things, for everyday life that every kid knows.
Oh, I'll tell you what, Andrew from Verona just made a great point on the text line. He says, problem is civics isn't on the standardized tests, so it's tough to find time to teach it. I mean, that's kind of the world.
Can I point out one thing before we leave?
Yeah.
While you were gone, Sam was absolutely fantastic, and I came to understand. And he is a graduate of the University of Wisconsin-Madison. The homecoming was while you were gone. Mm-hmm. But I'm looking at the weather forecast. We better check in weatherology. Perhaps hell has frozen over because a Badger is wearing a Minnesota Golden Gopher sweatshirt this morning. I don't know what
teased him before about that.
I don't know what is going on here, Sam.
I know.
My apologies, Todd.
There's no apology. I just thought I'm concerned about you. Are you okay?
I'm mentally fit. If that's
I'm okay. All right,
I'm okay.
That's all. Just want to make sure.
I am glad about that. All right, Todd. Thank you for that concern. Have a great show. We'll talk to you later, and we'll see the rest of you tomorrow. Too good.
All right.
All right, you guys.